Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am incredibly excited to guide you through today's topic. We're going to focus our attention on the absolutely awe-inspiring stories of Black women who shattered deep-seated systemic barriers across American history. And you know, these aren't just stories of personal triumph. They are literal blueprints of profound structural change. We're going to be looking at the precise moments when these trailblazers just outright refused to accept the status quo. And in doing so, they reshaped the entire landscape of this country for everyone who followed.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. First up, a legacy of firsts. Second, breaking the academic barrier. Third, unbossed, the political pioneer. Fourth, grassroots and civil rights. And finally, carrying the story forward.
Section 1. A legacy of firsts. So think for a second about the title of first. It carries an immense weight. It means operating totally without a safety net, without a precedent, and often in a really unwelcoming environment. I mean, imagine the sheer willpower required to break through a century of systemic opposition just so the path is smoother for the second, the third, and the 1,000th person to come after you. To put the historical scale of our explainer into perspective, it's been roughly 100 years since the very first Black woman earned a PhD in the United States. A century might feel like a long time, but in the grand arc of history, it is remarkably recent. And this number of 100 frames our entire discussion today, reminding us of how fresh these milestones actually are and how rapidly these women had to force progress into motion.
Let's move to and see how this built, because the timeline of pioneer milestones is just staggering. In 1864, Rebecca Lee Crumpler became the first Black woman to earn a medical degree. Jump to 1948, and Alice Coachman isn't just winning Olympic gold. She becomes the first Black woman to secure an international product endorsement. By 1957, tennis champion Althea Gibson is receiving a ticker tape parade right in New York City. Bringing it closer to our modern era, in 2015, Loretta Lynch becomes the first Black woman to serve as Attorney General. And if you've ever seen that really great YouTube retro short video, how Patricia Roberts Harris shaped the modern fight for social justice, you know exactly how critical these roles are. Her barrier-breaking roles in the presidential cabinet actively shaped the modern fight for social justice by proving that Black women absolutely belonged at the highest levels of executive power. These women were part of a totally unstoppable tide of progress.
Section 2. Breaking the academic barrier. Let's zoom in on a deeply personal struggle for academic equality. Georgiana Rose Simpson's timeline is fascinating. She didn't begin her university path as your typical teenager. Actually, she was a 41-year-old high school teacher from Washington, D.C. when she enrolled at the University of Chicago in 1907 to study German language and literature. She earned her bachelor's degree in 1911, and then, on June 14, 1921, at the age of 55, she officially became the first Black woman in the United States to earn a PhD. Talk about perseverance, right?
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it visualizes the intense structural push and pull of 1907. When Simpson arrived, she chose to live in Green Hall, a women's dormitory. Well, this sparked immediate opposition. White Southern women literally protested her residency, demanding she be removed. But she also had fierce allies. The renowned social reformer Dean Sophonisba Breckinridge defended Simpson's right to stay. Unfortunately, the university president, Harry Pratt Judson, overruled Breckinridge and forced Simpson off campus. This, of course, sparked a huge public outcry, with progressive activists like Celia Parker Woolley condemning the decision. Yet despite enduring this deeply hostile environment and forced removal, Simpson refused to be deterred.
University of Chicago Associate Professor Adam Green perfectly captures the essence of her legacy here. He notes, "We should celebrate not only her accomplishment, but her resilience and her self-belief. In a community that by today's standards would be seen as unwelcoming and perhaps even hostile, she persevered. And what did Simpson do with that hard-won PhD? She immediately paid it forward. She went right back to Washington, D.C. to teach at Dunbar High School and later became a professor at Howard University, reinvesting her brilliant mind back into her community."
Section 3. Unbossed, the political pioneer. Now we're shifting the narrative from academia to the political arena, introducing a star debater from Brooklyn College who genuinely changed the face of American politics. Shirley Chisholm's political ascent was rapid and incredibly historic. In 1968, she made history as the first Black woman elected to the United States Congress. But she definitely wasn't done breaking barriers. By July 1971, she was exploring a presidential candidacy,
And on January 25, 1972, she formally announced her run for President of the United States. She was the very first African American to seek a major party's nomination and the first woman to do so for Democrats.
And this brilliantly illustrates her audacious 1972 campaign announcement in a Brooklyn Baptist church. Chisholm offered a brand new articulation of American identity, declaring, "I am not the candidate of Black America, although I am Black and proud. I am not the candidate of the women's movement, I am the candidate of the people." She challenged the entire nation to look beyond rigid demographics and see her as a representative for everyone.
And her actions in office directly matched that rhetoric. Drawing from her early days in the Harriet Tubman Society and Delta Sigma Theta, Chisholm's lifelong fight for inclusive policies was multifaceted. She sponsored the Sikh remedial education program at CUNY, she successfully extended unemployment benefits to domestic workers, and was a very vocal opponent of the Vietnam War and the military draft. Even after leaving Congress, she continued to shape minds, teaching politics and history at Mount Holyoke and Spelman College.
Section 4. Grassroots and Civil Rights.
Let's transition to the grassroots level and focus on the harrowing efforts to secure fundamental democratic rights in the segregated South. Born in Mississippi, Fannie Lou Hamer joined the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, in 1962 to register Black voters. I want to be very clear about this. This activism came at an immense physical cost. For simply demanding the basic right to vote, Hamer endured severe backlash, including unjust arrests and brutal, life-altering beatings. The danger she faced was not theoretical. It was a visceral, physical reality every single day.
This culminated in her legendary testimony at the 1964 Democratic National Convention, where she drew national attention to the horrific racial violence in the South. She delivered this absolutely iconic quote, "I am sick and tired of being sick and tired." In just 10 words, Hamer perfectly encapsulated the sheer exhaustion of enduring systemic abuse, coupled with the fierce, unwavering determination of the movement to finally stop it. So, the crucial point is that Fannie Lou Hamer's bravery wasn't just symbolic, it yielded massive legislative breakthroughs. Her efforts were directly instrumental in the passage of the landmark Voting Rights Act of 1965. Furthermore, she understood that political freedom required economic freedom. This led her to found the Freedom Farm Cooperative to establish true economic independence and food sovereignty for Black farmers.
Section 5. Carrying the story forward.
The legacies of these pioneers aren't just stuck in the past, they are actively championed by new generations today. Back at the University of Chicago, students recently organized to install a bust of Georgiana Simpson in the Reynolds Club, which was once a space reserved strictly for white men. Poignantly, they placed her bust directly opposite a plaque commemorating the very university president who had forced her off campus a century ago. And it didn't stop there. In 2020, students founded the Georgiana Rose organization to foster the advancement of Black women, actively advocating for modern civil rights issues like the Crown Act, which protects natural Black hairstyles from discrimination.
Now, you might be wondering, as much as we celebrate these incredible pioneers, what does it mean that we are still celebrating firsts today? It's a pretty stark reminder of the structural inequalities that persist. So I want to ask you directly, how do we ensure we aren't still marking firsts 100 years from now? How do we actively dismantle those barriers in our own spheres of influence?
I want to conclude this explainer by leaving you with a profound, forward-looking thought from Professor Melissa Gilliam. She says, ideally, we'll continue to be a country that creates access for all people, so that 100 years from now, we're not still marking firsts. That is the ultimate goal for sure. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I'll leave you with this final thought. What will you do today to ensure that the doors these women kicked open stay open for absolutely everyone?